Hey everyone, this is Jason Engelman, CEO of Freaky Fast Home Buyers and Investments. You're listening to our new podcast, Brick by Brick, Building Wealth Through Single Family Homes. Today, I kind of want to hit a little bit about the single family home investment strategy. It's something that I think a lot of people have some form of knowledge or context of. You know, they've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it opened up a whole new idea, or it opened up a whole new world to them about how they could invest. Or maybe they've heard their great-grandpa or Grandpa Joe or Uncle Joe or somebody talking about how they have rental properties and they talk about, cash flows, but this tenant was horrible and this tenant tore up my house. And so there's all these different concepts of real estate investing. It starts off as a kid playing Monopoly or hearing stories, and then they maybe start involving by reading these books or going to these conferences and listening to these gurus on Facebook or TikTok talking about cash flow and tangible assets and ways to invest. Maybe you go to a conference and you hear speakers and they're trying to sell you on some type of education course that you could take to learn more about investing. And for me, it's one of those things where I wish I would have learned even at a younger age. I started in real estate at 27 and really started getting involved in wholesaling at first, and then buying rentals, and then doing fix and flips. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was 17, and man, it really excited me and it got me going. But I really didn't have a mindset of real estate investing. In fact, I had the mindset I'm just going into the ministry. When I graduated high school, I went to seminary for 3 years. And then my mom passed away of cancer, and so it threw me for a loop. I got out of the ministry mindset, and I was just trying to figure out life, trying to figure out who I was. And that's when I started working for an investment company that specialized in riskier investments like oil and gas, and really taught me how to deal with accredited investors, taught me how to work with people who are managing millions of dollars in their investment portfolio, and they're CEOs of companies, or they are, business owners, and they have this different mindset than maybe what I was even used to being a salesperson. Growing up through high school and college, I worked sales jobs, whether it was selling roofs or home health care, or, you name it, I sold it. And I felt like I was a pretty good salesperson, but it took me from sales to investments. And that's really when I started looking at, opportunities to grow in my knowledge in just all things investing. When my wife and I moved to Nashville for her music career, I answered a job listing in Craigslist, believe it or not, for a wholesale acquisitions company, and started learning the real estate business, learning how to comp houses, learning, what does ARV mean, and how to run numbers and build out scopes of work and build out construction costs, and just really learning that game. And it over time, it just evolved. I just spoke at the National RIA Summit in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it was a fantastic conference. It had, probably 2,000 different investors from all over the country come to this, and it was just an incredible event, one of the best I've ever been to personally. And they had me talk on passive income and passive investing. And as simple as that may sound, people just have the wrong idea of what passive investing is. Whether it's in single-family homes or in anything in general, what does passive investing mean? And I know I kind of did this big circle starting off this podcast, and I'll tie it together here in a minute. One of the things that I get asked a lot at conferences who maybe are being attended by people wanting to get started, or maybe a family member at a family event, or a friend at some type of event who wants to get started in real estate. And so they start asking me questions, and they usually ask, how do I get started? And I usually follow that question up with another question. Are you wanting to be an active real estate investor, or are you wanting to be a passive investor. Active investment is where it's really hands-on, and so many people get into real estate to be a passive investor, and they turn out to it ends up turning out to be a second job for them. And they become more active because they don't actually have the knowledge of how to do it passively. The whole theory of Rich Dad Poor Dad is to create passive income. Maybe you start off active, but you try to go the passive route. You know, the concept of mailbox money, it means it's passive income. Maybe you're traveling the world, or you're sitting on a beach, or you're doing something that you love doing, and while you're doing that pleasurable thing, your money is working for you, making you more money. That is passive. For me, I am an active investor in real estate. I run a company. I am in my office, and I'm actively looking at jobs and rehabbing jobs and talking to investors, and that's an active job. And the goal for me is to eventually get to passive as quickly as I can, whether it's getting my company to run without me, or eventually exiting my company and then taking that resource that I get for selling off the company and reinvesting into something that will create passive income. The whole idea of investing is to get to passive. And that's really what I want to hit on today. Is so when someone asks me, how do I get started? I follow that up with, do you want to be active or do you want to be passive? If maybe you're trying to create a time freedom, maybe you work a 9 to 5 and you're miserable at it and you hate it, and you just want something different, and you just don't feel like you're getting much for all the work and effort that you're putting in. And it's not like you're making like this incredible income. You are, just busting at the seams, working your butt off, and you just aren't making a whole lot. And you're like, okay, I want to go work for myself. I want to create my own dream. I want to build my own future and rely on me. Then yeah, active is the way to go. But if you're someone who's like a doctor or a dentist, like, you're not just going to start a real estate company and create the second job for you. Like, you're making really good money and you want to learn how to invest. So maybe you go to some type of conference, or maybe you're part of some investment group, or maybe you have a financial advisor and you're looking at different investments, and you're putting money in the stock market, and you're putting money, in oil and gas, and you're putting money in all these alternative investment opportunities. And for you, your goal is to find passive income. Your goal is to find passive investments that you can take very little to no time and allow that money just to go to work for you. And that's why a lot of people like the stock market. Maybe they hop on, their day trader accounts, or, their Robinhoods, and they're looking to see where it's at, but they're not really wanting to put a whole lot of time into it. They have a financial advisor, or they take a little bit of time to learn and master it, but it's not really what they do. For me, so many people don't enjoy the real estate game because they think it's passive, and they start getting involved, and then it becomes active, and then it just becomes a nightmare and a headache. And maybe they try doing passive, but they don't know who to work with. And there's all these different groups out there, and there's you're dealing with contractors, you're dealing with property managers, you're dealing with all these different people, attorneys, title companies, and buyers, sellers, realtors, and so it's just this constant creating and building, and it's very time consuming. All that to say, if you're listening to this podcast, ask yourself, are you currently investing? And if so, is it what I'm saying resonating with you? You're like, you're right. I wanted to get in this passively, and man, I'm just putting a lot of time and effort, and I just don't feel like the juice is worth the squeeze. Or maybe you're listening and you're wanting to get involved in real estate, and you just don't really know how to get involved. You don't know how to get started. You're maybe trying to do passive, but it looks like it's going to become active, or maybe you're just trying to quit your job and become active. And that's okay too. It's like, okay, where are you at? Now, I feel like I went 100 miles a minute to paint this picture so that you can know what you need to do. At this conference, I talked about the importance of passive investors. So many people there were actively investing. Some have been investing for years and years and years, longer than maybe I've even been alive. But again, some of them were actively investing, and they're looking for ways to put their money somewhere else to have it start working for them. And that's the whole that's the whole concept behind our company here at Freaky Fast. We want to create passive investment opportunities. We want you to be able to say, hey, Jason, I have 100,000 or I have $500,000 or whatever the case, and I'm looking to deploy it so that I can start creating a nice yield, so that I can start getting a nice ROI on my investment. That's the whole idea of Freaky Fast. And that's the whole idea of real estate investing in general. And again, just so many people sometimes get lost in that, no matter the situation or the case. For me, when I'm 50 years old, I don't want to be renting out properties to tenants, right? I don't want to have to go show houses or go find houses. Like I either A, want to already have that already in place and it's just been cash flowing for the last 20, 30 years, or B, I want to have a team in place that's doing all that and I'm able to enjoy life. I'm able to enjoy the fruits of the labor that I put in the last 5 years of this company. That's the mindset. For you as an investor, are you passively investing? Is your dollar making you babies? Are you getting the mama dollar and the papa dollar, putting in the work and creating, Dollar Junior and the second and the third and the fourth? Like we laugh and we joke about that, but that is what it's all about. Creating that cash flow that comes in every month, and you can pretty much guarantee that cash flow is going to come in, unless if maybe a tenant doesn't pay rent. But you know that you can expect money coming in for money that you've put out. Real estate is such a great way to do that. Right now, we're kind of entering this market where it's the unknown is very real. Like where do you see it going? I wish I had a crystal ball. I wish I knew exactly if it was going up or if it was going down. And that's all things market-wise, economic-wise, not just real estate, but the stock market and oil and gas and annuities and bonds and just where is the market going? Is unemployment going to go up or is it going to stay fairly low? Is there going to be more job growth or is there going to be job loss? Is there going to be people that now can't afford their house and so foreclosures are going to go up? Are you going to see a lot of evictions in place because people can't afford the rent now? I wish I knew that answer. And I think everyone does. And if anyone says they know for certain, they may have a good feeling, they may have a good understanding, they may have a good knowledge, but there's no guarantee that their opinion or their theory is going to actually be right. Now, again, there's indicators. There's indicators for both going up. There's indicators for going down. I talked to a gentleman who's been in this business. If I mention his name, you'd probably know him. And he's been in it for many, many years. And he told me Saturday, there's no way the market's going to crash. Maybe it corrects itself a little bit, but there is absolutely no way it's going to crash for the one simple fact, inventory. And you've heard me say that on the 2 previous podcasts. The inventory is very, very low. So there's a good chance it's not going to crash. Maybe it corrects a little bit. Maybe there's a little bit of a downturn, but nothing like 2009, 2010. So I say all that to say this. Real estate, single-family homes is a great way to invest right now. If you bought a house in 1970 and say you spent $40,000 for a house in 1970, even with interest rates at 18% in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, if you just held on to that and that property just cash flowed and that property literally just paid for itself, you had somebody in that property paying the mortgage for you, and you held on to that for 30 years, you know what you could sell it for? I mean, you'd get 4, 5, 6, 7x on that investment. I know some people who sold their properties for $250,000 plus when they bought it for $30,000, $40,000. Like, who wouldn't do that investment? It's interesting. I've said it, I think, on the last podcast. If you invest in real estate like stocks and day trading, you're looking at it the wrong way. You don't look at real estate investing by the year. You look at it by the decade. I think we've been spoiled over the last 3.5, 4 years of how quickly things appreciated that we literally started playing real estate like the stock market, like we were day trading. And in some ways, that's not a bad thing. as long as you don't allow that to blind you by the truth behind what real estate really is. And that is allowing that real estate to cash flow and pay off that mortgage that you have on that property. And at one point, you have a property that's free and clear that paid for itself. And now your net worth just skyrocketed because you have 10, 20 homes that are all free and clear that are cash flowing for you $1,200, $1,500 a month gross. And after all the fees that you take out of it, now you're making maybe $800,000 a month, and you're able to go live life. You're able to go travel around the world. You're able to maybe help your kids or your grandkids with whatever financial needs that they have. And you have the ability to either one of two things: sell all those properties and really realize that appreciation that you've received over the years, or you can leave it to your kids or grandkids. That's the concept of real estate. So many people have become millionaires with that concept. It's a proven concept. It's not like theory, like someone said, hey, let's come up with some wild idea of how to make money. And so they've, put this formula together, but it's never been proven. That's not the case. This is a guaranteed concept. Now, that doesn't mean that bad things don't happen. It doesn't mean that it works perfectly. It doesn't mean that you don't have tenants who don't pay and they trash your house and now you got a $20,000 repair to get it back to where it was after they move out. It's not saying all that. I mean, you can't just take out risk. That's the investment game. It's a game that you literally have to play, and there is risk involved. But you have to risk it for the biscuit. You remember saying that as a kid? Like, it's true. You have to put your money to work. You have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone and take risk. But when you do that, and you do it in a proven concept, you have a very good shot of being successful. Doesn't mean you don't take one or two across the chin. Doesn't mean that maybe you buy a bad deal and you maybe lose some money and you learn from it. Okay, so be it. But real estate is that proven concept that can create that generational wealth if you just play the game by the rules and you do it right. It's that simple. Now, here at Freaky Fast, we know that there's investors out there who understand that concept, but they don't have the time or the ability to really work out that plan. So for us, it's like, okay, let's do it for you. Let's, build up all these relationships with contractors, and let's build up relationships with realtors and wholesalers and marketing teams that we can get in great deals, and then be able to have the crews in place to rehab them and property managers in place to go ahead and rent those out and get those cash flowing, so that you, the investor, can then build a relationship with us and put your capital with us so that we can start creating passive income for you and help you build up your portfolio. One of the best emails I've ever gotten as an owner of this company was just a couple weeks ago. One of our investors sent me an email saying, hey, Jason, I just want to let you know I received the distribution for this month. And just so you know, I'm currently sailing around Greece, and Freaky Fast made that possible. Man, that made me feel so good. That he was able to take that passive income that comes in every month and be able to do something fun with his life and be able to go see the world. Like, that's what we want to do. And that's what we really strive for. Now, if you're an investor and you're already doing this and so forth, good for you. Don't freak out. Don't panic about the markets. Like, I think that there might be a little bit of uneasiness in the first quarter, maybe even the second quarter. But I do see that there's going to be opportunities to have. But yeah, I don't necessarily think it's going to be like this massive downturn collapse. I think it's going to stay fairly stable. Again, just because of the fact that there is this huge demand and there's not enough inventory. For you, maybe you've never invested, and you're like, okay, how do I get involved? Well, take that question that I asked earlier. Do you want to be active or do you want to be passive? If you want to be active, then there's a lot of great masterminds. There's a lot of great groups out there. There's books you could read, classes you could take that can teach you how to wholesale and start building up to where you want to be. I had a kid who's worked with me in the past, and he said, I want to kind of get to your level. I'm kind of starting over. Where do I go? What do I do? And it's like, okay, buy a house. Rehab that house, and then flip that house. Take that equity that you just made and buy two houses. And take that equity and buy one house that you know is going to be a rental, and then take the other money and buy a flip. So now after that first sale, now you have two more. So it gives you a total of three. You flip the first, and then next two, you flip one and you rent one. And you do the BRRRR method. So you buy it, you rehab it, you rent it out, and then you refinance, take that money out and repeat it. And so you're building up like these two verticals between flipping and long-term rentals. Again, it's a just simple, proven concept. And you just have to be smart with your numbers and know what you need to buy and to rehab it and build in contingency plans and build in, variables in case if something doesn't go right and something goes wrong. But know your numbers. And then maybe for you, you're like, hey, I got a great job. I'm just looking for a place to park my capital and get it working for me. I know I should be in real estate. Or I've done it and I've just had a bad experience. But again, I don't want to not attempt it again. Then look for an operator that you can invest in that's going to create passive income. I mean, there's so many great ones out there. You got the Open Door with Brandon Turner, who's got great apartment complexes and great opportunities that everyone knows and loves. And you got companies like his or many more out there. The Freaky Fast would fall under that category of, hey, we want to do good work. We want to build that relationship, that trust with you, the investor. And for someone like Freaky Fast, we are still fairly young, both as a company as well as the staff here. So we've got many more years ahead of us that we are going to be actively growing. And so for you as a passive investor, that's a company that you would want to invest with and start building that trust with, because there's going to be years of opportunity to work together and build up your portfolio. And I think that is what's so key with passive income is what kind of relationships can you build to help you accomplish that. That was a lot. I just kind of ran it like 100 miles a minute. So hopefully you're able to keep up. And hopefully what I gave was somewhat helpful. Passive. That's where you want to be. If you're in a market downturn, you want that passive cash flow. You don't want to have to put a whole lot of time, effort, emphasis on it. You just want to count on it. Know that's going to be there, because that will definitely help you when things get a little bit tough. If you're in the stock market, and this is why I prefer real estate over stocks, and I'll end on this. The stock market, it goes up and it goes down. And what's funny is if it goes down, your broker will be, it's just a position. You don't lose until you sell. But then when it goes up, they're like, hey, look how much money I made, Jen. It's like, well, it's also a position until I sell. And what happens is when things start getting real shaky, a lot of people pull their money out. You saw that happen in March and April of 2020 when we heard about COVID and we heard about lockdowns. People wanted that dry powder, and so you literally saw the stock market tank like within a week. It's because everybody was pulling their money out because it was so liquid. And they didn't care where it was. They just wanted that money in the bank. I remember reading some article that there was more liquid cash in the banks in the history of America. Now, I don't know if that's true, but there was billions and billions of dollars sitting in the bank because people liquidated their stocks. Now, the problem with that is a lot of them lost money because they pulled it out as it was going down. With real estate, here's the difference. You can just ride that position. So if the real estate market did go down a little bit, and it did for maybe like 2 weeks, and then it just like skyrocketed almost immediately, even quicker than stocks. If you have the real estate, it's not as liquid, so you can't freak out as quickly and pull out your position. It's more of a tangible asset, and so it's not as liquid. It's going to sit there for a while. You have to sell it before you can get your money back, and that could take 60, 90, 120 days. And in some ways, that's a good thing because it keeps you from having this knee-jerk reaction and pulling money out, number one. But number two, you won't need to do that if that property's cash flowing for you. Oh, man, I need 10 grand this month. A family member has an emergency, or I have an emergency, and we're going in lockdown. Well, I've got 10 rental properties that are going to give me $1,000 a month. So boom, there it is. So it creates a little bit more of that cash flow that kind of helps propel you and keep you going through that downturn. Again, I'm so bullish on real estate, and I hope you are. If not, you need to really study and really look into where it's at. If you don't know it, that's fine, but don't use that lack of knowledge to keep you from getting involved. It's sexy. It's a great it's a great model to invest in. And you really owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family to really start putting capital into real estate. I hope this has been encouragement. I hope this has been a help. If you want to learn how you can invest with Freaky Fast, go to our website, freakyfastinvestments.com. You can speak to one of our financial investor advisors about the opportunities that we have and see how Freaky Fast could be a great opportunity for and perfect fit for your portfolio. And we can show you how we can generate monthly dividend checks to you. So please check us out, and you're more than welcome to schedule an appointment with one of our team members, and we'll be glad to just walk you through our information. Again, thank you so much for listening. I'm Jason England, CEO of Freaky Fast Home Buyers and Investments, and you've been listening to Brick by Brick, Building Wealth Through Single Family Homes. Have a great day.